Hello, everyone. My name is Gary Gomes. I'm a Vedic astrologer with nearly 35 years experience. Um, and I'd like to talk with you about astrology, Vedic astrology in particular, how it affects you, how it affects the world, how we can see it in our relations with the world and our relations with um, the greater environment in which we exist in this for this transitory season. And when I say transitory season, I'm talking about our lives. Okay, so that's like a fancy term for our lives. Um, the I had a request. Oh, by the way, if you want to contact me for lessons or for readings, the best way to contact me is at 508-525-0001. I'm on WhatsApp. I'm also on Facebook. You can find me on Instagram. You can find me on X. I'm in a variety of places, but the best thing to do is text me at 508-525-0001. And I can also be emailed at garygomesg@gmail.com. Those are the easiest ways to get me. So it's garygomesg@gmail.com. So my name, the letter G, and at Gmail. So I was asked to look at the chart of the UK by um, in the comments section. So I'm going to look at the UK chart first because actually the UK and the United States have been involved in a little bit of an exchange recently, especially in connection with Canada, excuse me, and also in terms of Prime Minister Sturmer's visit to uh, Prime Minister's Prime Minister Sturmer's negotiation with regarding the United States tariffs. So I'm going to spend a few minutes, but I think actually one of the reasons I'm interested in this from a personal level is I still have family in England. I'm half English. My mother was a war bride from Liverpool, England. And so I still have family and family connections in England. And so I pay a great deal of attention to what's going on there. India, it goes without saying, I practice a form of Indian astrology. I have friends in India. I have a lot of acquaintances from India, and I have a lot of Indian clients. So this can explain what's been happening over the past few years and few weeks in both UK and India. And then I'll switch back to the chart for the week, and then I'll go do the individual horoscopes and for each sign. Then I will do a map of what's happening in the world. Okay, so this first chart I'm hoping is UK. It is, in fact, but it's not showing up, so I'm going to stop and share. So the UK chart is pretty interesting. It's I did have another chart from the early 1900s, which I actually preferred, but I couldn't find it right away when I was looking at my programming. So this is for the 1801 chart. This is the Declaration of the United Kingdom of um, England, Scotland, Wales, and Ireland. Now, Ireland itself has broken off from the United Kingdom. Scotland is showing signs of maybe going independent of the United Kingdom, but Northern Ireland is still a part of the UK. So I think this map, even though the main part of Ireland is independent of the UK, I think this map is still valid. So if you look at this map, we have K2 in the first house. So, And one of the reasons I like this map as well is because it's essentially um, it's after the United Kingdom lost the American colonies, so you couldn't include that in the Commonwealth of Nations. It was essentially founded before the Commonwealth of Nations was in existence. It's it has continuity in that the same royal family basically is in power, has been in power since that particular point in time. Actually, the Hanover family started considerably earlier, but George III the third was in the Hanover line, and Prince Charles is in the direct line from King George the Third. So it's been a relatively consistent monarchy for these roughly 224 years. So let's see now. So if you look at the UK chart, it's interesting because, like the United States, and I'm going to draw a lot of parallels with the United States here. Like the United States, it's in a Rahu major planetary period. You see that right up there in the right-hand side. Now the United States has been in its Rahu Mahadasha since 2016, roughly um, consistent with the election of Donald Trump to the presidency. And the UK has been in its Rahu Mahadasha since 2012. But no two countries are alike. And I think one of the things you'll see is that one of the things that Rahu actually does rule over is things like um, foreigners, adjustment, reform, um, disruption, uh, and also discontent. So all these things are happening in the United Kingdom right now as we speak. UK has been um, basically uh, is in a position right now where let me just go back a little bit, where it's having, I would say, the same kinds of immigration issues that the rest of Europe is having, but also the United States had, and also England is very, very highly. Um, I don't want to use the term woke, but I'll use the term woke. It's very, very liberal or leftist in its politics right now, in most of its politics. It, there are also interesting parallels in that you had Brexit a few years ago, which was very much a Rahu phenomenon. So essentially, you're saying to yourself, well, before 2012, yeah, Jupiter, let's all be one big happy family, and Jupiter is exalted in the 11th house of friends, and uh, you're and essentially the UK joined the European Union in its roughly in its Jupiter Mahadasha. Um, but when Rahu came, Rahu gives dissatisfaction with alliances um, or with partnerships, especially in this chart, it's in the seventh house. And the UK has this very, it's sort of a mixed chart. It tends to be taken advantage of by um, in relationships. Okay, so because we have Mars affliction in this chart. The United States actually has that as well. So it's interesting to look at those two conditions. And that's usually in terms of marriages, but basically this would essentially apply to any kind of an agreement or collaboration or union. And this can give breakoffs or separations. Rahu in the seventh house can make people kind of unhappy with um, I'm sorry, UK didn't join during a Jupiter Mahadasha. It joined during either either a Moon or a Mars Mahadasha. My apologies. And basically, and the Moon was in the 10th house, so it's a friendly planet. Is going to say, well, let's get along with people. Let's enjoy each other's company. Let's meet and greet. All this other stuff. Um, Mars is a little bit tricky. Mars is in its own sign in the eighth house, so going to be start to be problems in the European Union, roughly between 2005 and 2012. And finally, Rahu says, "Well, we've had enough. We're not going to take it." But again, it was a very thin margin. They only voted 52% to get out of the EU. Um, it was just barely over, and David Cameron actually held the election because he thought it would fail. So this is similar to what's happened in the United States, and you have um, people in power, especially during a Rahu Mahadasha, um, underestimating the competition. Okay, so that's one of the things. Now Rahu disposes to an exalted Jupiter, so this Rahu Mahadasha has been very up and down for the UK. Rahu does tend to give reform movements to a country. Okay, so it's interesting. So if we go back 120 years in the past, let's say to let me see how good my math is. Oh, that's around 1900, right? Okay, that's easy. 1905. Um, so this is like basically on just a little bit before the start of the Great War. But 1905, the UK was essentially, you know, um, I won't say in tremendous shape, but it was a world power. Now it's not so much, and one of the reasons that you're seeing this is actually because of the transits that are active now. Saturn is in, and we're looking at a lot of what I would call late 60s, early 70s transits. So a lot of folks don't recall there was an anti-immigrant candidate called Enoch Powell in the UK in the late 60s, early 70s. And he was apparently a very educated man, but he was generally regarded distastefully by a lot of folks, especially the educated classes, because it didn't seem very, very tolerant. But a lot of the problems um, that the UK had um, encountered with immigration actually happened actually, or the wave of immigration actually started in the late 60s. So you had a lot of people from what were former colonies of Great Britain, like Pakistan and India and those places essentially entering England. Now, what's happened since then, at least as far as I know, is there have been more. So a lot of the violence around that time was actually instituted uh, by a youth called skinheads who were essentially racist gangs who danced to ska music, which was a black music, which is ironic, right? But that's what those were the primary uh, progenitors of violence. At the same time, you're having this Rahu activated by Saturn, so it's essentially um, hurting what I would call the majority population, or so the Mars aspect on Jupiter is going to hit the majority or the native population. Mercury is the native population. Um, Mercury rules the first house. And England as a country, uh, let's let's be honest, has been invaded several times within its history. It hasn't been totally um, free of migration waves, but the rate of migration into England has been, I think it's safe to say, roughly 3 to 4 times the rate it's been in the United States, considering the general population of the country. So I'm not anti-immigration, don't get the wrong idea. So I want to put that on the table right ahead. But I think the rate of immigration has been uh, harmful to a lot of countries because they just can't absorb it. It gets more costly to maintain the level of service or the level of um, maintenance that's needed to provide this kind of service or this kind of activity. So I have nothing against people coming into other countries. I am worried though that um, England's in its Venus subperiod, it's in its fifth house subperiod, ruler of the second house and ninth house, which is considered good. But there have been, especially over the past 5 years, and this is the seat of power. So the seat of power was challenged or disrupted between 2020 and 2022 when COVID hit, and slightly thereafter. And Saturn's been transiting through these houses for the past 5 or 6 years. Now, what I'm seeing for England is we have this Venus upgrade. There are no negative aspects on Venus right now. Venus will essentially, Venus in Vedic astrology is considered the domestic minister of the country. Okay. So it's going to try to address the problems that people of the country are having. I think this is why you're seeing people like uh, Mr. Farage gaining in popularity because this is the house of politics in England as well. And I think so. Venus is often misunderstood as being a very peaceful and calm planet. It's not. Um, it's the avatar of Venus uh, through Vishnu was Parashurama, who is essentially Rama with a battle axe, and he essentially killed the Brahmin, killed the warrior caste 3 times over in order to avenge his family's defeat. So we're in a Venus subperiod. So there is this feeling um, of that is essentially police or kshatriya, and essentially the government. The government is kshatriya class. Those are rulers. Um, have taken advantage of the public. Okay, so we're going to see this kind of activity over the next couple of years up until 2027. I do think you will see a shift in government no later than 2027. And I also think, given the fact the sun is the ruler of the 12th house, I think you'll see the old government go out and a new government come in. But I'm even more optimistic that it will happen before then. Right now, we're in the Saturn subperiod until December 8th of 2026. That will slow down change. It will cause economic losses until probably around the end of December of 2026, or economic uncertainty. Okay, so I'm not short-term optimistic about um, the UK's recovery. However, within about a year and a half after Rahu leaves the sixth house of conflicts and hits the fifth house of politics. Towards the end of 2026, you'll definitely see a change in government. And I'm thinking overall, at least from this chart, you'll also see a gradual restoration um, of some of England's wealth and status, especially after 2028 when we get this moon subparade. So England will again, maybe not as powerful as it once was, but will assert become more of a leader in Europe over the next 2 to 3 years. So this isn't really a short term kind of a, so in the short term, next few months, definitely some problems. On the positive side, Jupiter's entering this particular house right now. It's in the 10th house in the chart. It's in the first house from the moon. So you will start to see it go up, and you'll start to see the economy really start to expand in 2026. Okay? So um, the UK is not out for the count yet. As a matter of fact, one of the things that recently happened was Prince Charles. You may have seen it on television. Prince Charles delivered a speech uh, asserting Canada's um, independence, and so the United States is in this Rahu Mahadasha, or is essentially um, boasting that it wants um, to make Canada a 51st state, which is typical Rahu behavior. And Prince Charles gave a speech which was written by Carney. So a lot of people miss that detail. It was written by Carney, but reaffirming, or King Charles, I'm sorry, not Prince Charles, King Charles. Um, and so that reaffirmation is a sign that the crown is behind Canada, and it will be behind um, its own Commonwealth countries. Now, keep in mind, during a Rahu Mahadasha, you're not going to see a return to um, a return to quote unquote traditional society in the UK. Rahu is inherently disruptive, so uh, those voices of reform, those squabbles about what England owes the world for its colonial past, those kinds of things won't die out for about 5 years when we hit this Jupiter Mahadasha. Okay. And Jupiter, from what I've seen of Jupiter Mahadashas, and this is essentially a very exalted Jupiter, within 5 years, you'll see number one, England returning to a very strong financial position, and number two, getting more and more expansionary, less and less docile. And I think this will be an interesting change because the United States is going to enter this first. No, I'm sorry. England's going to answer this first. My apologies. And about 4 years later, so this is interesting because this kind of reinforces something I've noticed through the years that England and the United States tend to mirror each other but by a few years apart. So whenever you see, hello, yeah, hi. So I'm not sure if the screen stopped sharing. I'm just gonna put it back on on the screen for a second. All right. So I think um, one of the things. So I'm seeing England bounce back a bit uh, when it hits this Jupiter Mahadasha. And mainly it's because there could be an economic expansion, there could be a war. I hope not, just for the world's sake. Um, but it won't be with the United States. It won't be with an ally. And it's important to keep in mind in terms of world politics, allies do fall out of agreement from time to time. The other thing is we have one of the interesting things is there is what I would call a free speech problem in the UK. Okay, so I mean it's worse in Germany, if I'm honest, but there is a free speech problem in the UK, and that's mainly because of K2 hitting this house about 3 years ago, and going through this first house over the past year and a half, and a lot of that stuff will be taken out. But Saturn aspects the second house in this chart. Now, one of the things that I will be interested to see is whether or not Labor takes, because Labor's a very Saturnian party, uh, uh, as I view the Democrats. It's a very restrictive party from everything I've seen, and I view the Democrats rather similarly. And um, so I'm speaking as a person who actually, so I have nothing against either party or any party, but both the Democrats and Labor have this kind of, I'm just trying to think of a good way to put it, tolerance for dissent that's very Saturnian. Okay. And so I'm not saying the other parties are any better, but it's pretty obvious. Uh, it's very obvious when those parties do it. Um, and I think that it'll be interesting to see what happens to the current government, especially towards the end of 2026 when K2 passes over Saturn, um, and whether or not taxes will be lessened and whether or not that government will be forced into a vote of no confidence. So it'll be interesting. But K2 is entering this sign relatively soon. As a matter of fact, it's before the end of this month, and so I think it's going to be really really interesting to see what happens in the UK. One of the things that's interesting about this chart is that there's a Venus Jupiter mutual aspect in this chart, and Venus is in one of its friendliest signs, and Jupiter's in its exalted sign. So I don't see the UK holding down itself for very long unless it voluntarily does so. I can see them actually becoming a vibrant economy once again. But that's just my take on it. And I've been paying more attention to these things over here. These are called Shasti Amshas. And Rahu and Ketu are kind of unfavorable in the chart, but a lot of these other Shasti are relatively favorable. Okay, so I'm thinking when Rahu enters the sixth house, which will be within about a month, you'll start to see more um, anger and violence and even more street protests. And you'll also see um, maybe even popular urges for recall of the current Labor government. Whether or not that happens is open to question. And and I'm not encouraging anybody to do that, by the way. So I'm just reading a chart. Okay. So this isn't a personal advocacy position. I want to be clear about that. Okay. I'm just reading the chart. So it gives potential for that. Will it happen? might happen among the poorer classes in the country, and it might happen among what we would call the forgotten classes. But it's interesting in that Saturn sits in a nakshatra, which is connected with the ancestors, connected with the people from the past, so the people who've been there a long time. So 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 there is some hope for the UK, but it's going to take, I see, at least a year and a half to shake it out, and up to 5 years to really clear out a lot of the uh, detrita which has happened over the past um, roughly 14 years or so in the UK. So it does have a chance to spring back. There is a chance for radical reform, but it'll take some time. Okay? Also, the UK has been permanently changed um, by groups that are now within its boundaries. So the UK will not be the same UK, even during the Jupiter Mahadasha, that it was before. That's unrealistic. Um, but but again, keep in mind this Rahu is going to make the UK rather still reform-minded, still, but again, that could also be the Reform Party, the Nigel Farage component, still concerned with addressing the needs of immigrant populations, and still interested in trying to correct and trying to stabilize the government. But again, there's this heavy, what I would call outpouring of expenditures with Saturn in the 12th house that's causing the taxation rates to increase. So I'm not seeing like major improvement of the economy over the next, uh, let me just go back here. So maybe from January 21st to June 16th, you'll see a slight rebound for England. But after 2026, between June of 2026 and December 8th of 2026, you'll see more expenditures and probably tax hikes. So this period right here, right now, we're in kind of a change period. Venus, Sun, Moon, Mars periods. Right now, almost right on top of a Mars period. So that would give me the belief that you would see an increased violence. And Rahu period, August 12th to January 21st of 2026, increased interest in reform. Um, and January 21st to June 16th, I return to a less tax-heavy society. And June 16th to December 8th, deficits. But December 8th through of 2026 until May 10th of 2027, some increase in the economy and trade in May 10th of 2027 to July 15th of 2027, breaking off more independence. So again, around July 15th, 2027, maybe a new government, maybe even earlier than that, but we'll see what happens. All right. And as far as England and the US getting into a conflict, that's not going to happen. I want to look at India's chart, which is the second, because India was very upset with President Trump. Um, this past uh, these past couple of weeks, uh, because mainly because Trump claimed credit for something that India had said they had done. All right. So I'm not taking sides here. I'm putting it down in as objective terms as I possibly can because I know I have a lot of quite a few Indian viewers and quite a few U.S. viewers. So I'm trying to stay out of the argument. And this came up mainly because I got involved in a dispute with somebody online about, so what's India so upset about? So India, so background. Trump took the position that the tariff negotiations, essentially the negotiations that were taking place between Pakistan and India and the United States, were what convinced both countries to stop engaging in a conflict. India takes the position that essentially they kicked Pakistan's butt in the conflict, and Pakistan backed off and uh, were frightened by India's uh, firepower. So I think that's pretty much a good summation of the disagreement. So it's lacking a little bit of detail. So it has the appearance that Trump denigrated uh, India's firepower, or he didn't give it the credit it deserved. Um, and so this is one of the things, excuse me for laughing, I apologize. One of the things that Trump has been famous for, and that is claiming things that other people can dispute. And but if we look at where India is right now, whoops, that's the wrong date. We're not in 2171. Hold on a second, folks. So India is in a Rahu Mahadasha too. Okay. So India's been in a Rahu Mahadasha since just recently, actually. So let's go over here. Dates. Let's go. Let's bring the levels down. Since December 5th of 2021. So India is going to become incredibly nationalistic as well. India's Rahu is in its eighth house, at least according to this chart. I know there are different India charts, and I apologize. This is one I got from my software. And Rahu's in its exalted sign. So, and India does have Mars in the ninth, so it does have an impressive military. Um, but let's see what's going on right now. So India is in a Rahu Jupiter subperiod. So that's going to increase nationalist tendencies. Um, I'm not saying they're without justification. I'm just saying it's going to increase nationalist tendencies. Um, it's going to make them much more um, sensitive to um, attacks from, or not attacks, or from criticism, or from diminution. No, I didn't say that right. By by Trump, who's trying to take credit wherever he can because that's the nature of politics. Okay, politics is not really an honest game. Now, keep something in mind. Mercury is, so we're in a Rahu Jupiter Mercury-Venus subperiod right now in India. The most important planet to look at, or the most important planets to look at in this particular chart, are Rahu, obviously, because it's connected with Venus, and it's also connected indirectly with Jupiter because Venus is the ruler of Rahu's sign, and Venus also rules the first house in this chart. Moon is in Venus's sign. I'm sorry, Moon is in its own sign, my apologies. And Mercury is in the Moon sign. So we have this rather strong combination of Venus and Mercury. And guess what's passing over this sign right now? A debilitated Mars. Okay? So India is going to be extremely offended by what the United States says. Um, I'm not saying they don't have any right to be offended. I'm just saying that Mars in that particular sign is going to be very, very upset if its actions aren't viewed as being um, solitary and without any help from that guy in the United States who likes to take credit for everything. Okay, so this is what I would call a passing phenomena. I wouldn't call it a serious dispute. This is Trump's 12th house, so it's so maybe he should shut up until Mars enters his first house, but we know that's not going to happen. And I'm not laughing at India. I'm just saying it's the astrological reasoning behind that particular position is extraordinarily strong. And I think one of the things I would advise India on is there's a strong potential for military outbreaks, oh, especially around June 30th and again around August 12th and even as late as September 1st. So this is a period in which India should be on high alert. Don't worry about what I'd encourage you not to worry. You know, you can certainly criticize the president. I don't care about that. But um, the House of Enemies is the sixth house, which is Jupiter, and Jupiter is over here in the ninth house. So there will be fights with enemies over the next year or so, just because of Jupiter. So India is at risk of war and it's at risk of violence over the next, I would say, roughly year. And also, in terms of its dealings with Russia, I would be very careful of its dealings with Russia, especially during the K2 subperiod between September 1st and October 23rd. Um, Russia has um, offered aid to Pakistan after it attacked India. And one of the things I find interesting about this is that Pakistan is that India and Russia are partners in the BRICS economic collaborative. So this is, and to be truthful, the most powerful nation in that collaborative right now is India. India can essentially, because China, although it's the second largest economy in the world, is floundering a bit, and India is not. So India has more ability, at least from my perspective, to dominate that collaborative than virtually any other nation has. Okay. Their government is stable. They have a they have an economy which is not uh, in desperate straits like China's economy is. Um, and their growth trajectory is upward. And this chart shows that, especially during this Rahu Jupiter subperiod. So I think, and even into the Saturn subperiod, to be quite honest with you, because Saturn's in the 10th house, is a great uh, uh, Raj Yoga Karaka planet for Libra rising. It's they're going to do fantastic after 2027. It's not that they're doing horribly right now, but after 2027, watch out, India is really going to skyrocket in terms of growth. But like I said, this is not something, so you know, I, it doesn't matter to me if you're mad at Trump, to be honest. I just don't want um, that anger to replace good judgment. Apparently, Prime Minister Modi hasn't. Um, I haven't seen the news over the past couple of days, but apparently, President Modi hasn't said anything about it from what last I heard. And I'm not telling you individually you shouldn't be upset about it or you should be upset about it. But like I said, essentially politicians will essentially say things to make themselves look good and to say, well, we helped in the process. It's it's just it's just the definition of what it's sort of like the definition of what a politician does. I've been around politics, and I'm not saying this from like a blowing off perspective. I've been around politicians and politics my entire life, although not at an international level, of course. But I've just seen them in action, like really up close. Okay, and for the most part, they do a good job. But inevitably, they'll try to figure out a way to make themselves look good. That's just their nature. Okay, so let's go to the world map for this week. So, not saying India shouldn't be upset. If India, um, hurt Pakistan, and if India deterred Pakistan, that's terrific. And I think they did. But I think also it's kind of a waste of energy to get mad at a politician trying to make a political point. But that's my opinion. You're entitled to yours. Um, if so, this is the map for where the planets are right now. We have Saturn in the seventh house. So if you were asking me a question right now, I would tell you, don't ask me the question now because Saturn's in the seventh house and I can't give you a good answer. Um, so take that in mind when you're looking at this particular broadcast. But Saturn in the seventh house. So this gives difficult relations with people in your life, difficult relations with partnerships. Venus is in the eighth house. Venus has finally moved out of that conjunction, and Rahu's finally moved. Hooray! Okay, so that feeling of frustration that we've all experienced with Rahu, and so Rahu gives us like this feeling of like we're going to achieve a lot, and then all of a sudden, and Saturn comes along and says, "No, you're not." Sort of like stops you down. Rahu's in its own sign right now. Ketu's technically in its own sign right now. It's in its birth sign. So because K2 can't exist without the sun because it causes solar eclipses, right? And Rahu is in the opposite field of that spectrum, so it goes over to Aquarius, where actually fulfills a lot of technological innovations over the next couple of years. Saturn is in the seventh house. In this chart, it's the Lord of the sixth in the seventh house. So enemies or animosities between nations will be strong. Saturn is aspecting the sun. World leaders will be upset or sad or disappointed. Jupiter's in the 10th house. So there's a strong desire for leadership or for guidance or for telling us where the heck to go. And Moon and K2 are in the 12th house. We'll talk about Mars in a second. Moon and K2 are in the 12th house, and Mars will transit into the sign within a few days. So we'll see, I would say, some explosive things happening over the next 2.5 months, uh, but mainly between now and July 18th, Mars and K2 conjunction. Okay, so expect a lot more fires, expect a lot more um, maybe even some assassination attempts or attempts to overthrow governments over the next couple of months. It'll be an interesting time. Uh, I'd be astonished if something like that didn't happen. Also, another thing, expect governments to be a bit more oppressive. And one of the reasons I'm saying that is because the sun is aspected by Saturn right now, at least for the next couple of weeks. Mars will be in the same sign with K2, so that could mean you'll see the militia or other armed forces come out to quell demonstrations. And also, you may see what I would call minor outbreaks. Now, the reason, so I'm sort of in a minority for my fellow astrologers in that I don't think we're going to see a war break out. But it's quite possible you'll see an escalation of hostilities. Um, and this is especially true in countries like Ukraine, Jerusalem, I'm sorry, not Jerusalem, Israel, Palestine, uh, and also just given where these planets are, I would say the Far East because this direction in the chart tends to rule the Southeast. Okay, so if we're looking at the seventh house, let me just see now. So the rising sign is usually in, let me see how screwed up I can get this. One, rising sign is Aries is in the east. Cancer is in Libra is in the west. Okay, so this is actually, okay, so Venus gains strength in the southeast. Mars gains strength in the east. Moon gains strength in the fourth house. Venus gains strength in the fourth house. So given where these planets are, Leo is in the chart, this would tend to be east. Okay. So 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 essentially I this is why I'm expecting a lot more tension in the southeast over the next few years. Not necessarily in the Americas, although it's very possible. Um, and so this will can give, if any shooting wars start, I'm expecting more conflicts around China, India, Pakistan, those areas. Um, but it's not impossible for them to break out anywhere else, if I'm quite truthful. But I don't think there were every other bit of information I've been given about events that have been triggered by Mars K2 conjunctions, which is coming up fairly soon. It hasn't been just Mars and K2. There have been other planets which have essentially stoked the fire a bit. Venus, Jupiter, Saturn are the main culprits. So we're not seeing any of those patterns right now, at least not in the immediate future. So I'm tending to think we may see some violence. I think we'll escape a major war, though. Okay, that's just my prognostication, and I hope for all our sakes I'm right. Okay, and nothing against my colleagues. I hope my colleagues are wrong. Okay, or the colleagues who have said that. Um, I'm not taking into account Neptune or Pluto because I normally don't use those in Vedic astrology. Um, I don't think they're, but Pluto's in Capricorn, at least in this chart. Neptune's in Pisces. There's really not a lot of interaction between Capricorn and Leo in this chart. And the closest to any interaction is a square between Uranus and K2 and Mars. So that can mean an unexpected uh, overthrow or upheaval, okay? But not necessarily a war, okay? So um, at least that's my prognostication. So in terms of commerce, we'll tend to see commerce get a little bit affected, a little panicky in the summertime, um, but also wild ups and downs in terms of the speculative markets. Jupiter is in the 10th house, at least in this chart, giving increased benefits to um, Geminis in particular, but also to um, negotiations or talks. And I think you'll start to see those start to come to fruition before um, mid-June, because the sun will be in that sign at that time. Mercury will be in its own sign by that time. So I'm hoping for like what I would call a last minute um, pullback from the brink. Okay. Um, Venus is stuck in this sign. So, like I said, there can be worries about financial success or financial stability. Saturn is in the seventh house. It affects the entire chart from that position. It affects the sun. So our confidence may be down. We may be a little bit more careful about buying things. And it also aspects um, Sagittarius, which makes the U.S. a little bit depressed or a little bit downhearted right now. But also, it makes us fearful of war because it's kind of aspecting Mula Nakshatra. It's not only kind of aspecting Mula Nakshatra, it is aspecting Mula Nakshatra. If we go over to the Navamsha chart, we have Mars in the first house, which is not good. But Jupiter's the Lord and Jupiter's in the ninth house, so that's actually good. And there's an exchange of lords between Jupiter and Mars. So that can mean any warlike tendencies can be um, um, settled through diplomacy. Venus and Moon are in the second house. That gives increased financial growth to the sign. Venus is what's called Vargotama. It's in the same division in both charts. And so that's good for financial growth, actually, overall. And Saturn's in the sixth house. So Saturn's not really going to be in a position where it can dominate the chart. Sun and Rahu everybody's going to be dissatisfied with the government. Everybody, no matter where they are. Okay? No matter if you're in Japan and Mexico and Brazil and the United States and Europe, everybody's going to be dissatisfied with the government. Okay. So that's really where I'm seeing the biggest threat is in terms of internal politics, not external. Okay. So at least from this chart, Sri Lagna is in the second house, which is good for financial gains. So, like I said, this is a lot like the late 60s to me. A lot of it's what I would call um, internal protests. I'm certain you're going to see more demonstrations um, against what's happening in Gaza. I'm certain of that. I'm certain you're going to see more protests happening in terms of uh, what the governments are doing, both in the United States and the UK, even in India, even in Russia, even in Japan, even in China, pretty much around the world. So it's just one of those periods where there's a lot of internal um, whirling, and but not a lot, but at least from what I can see, not a lot of external aggression. So this is more of a quote unquote revolution than conflict in war chart. And even that may not be as bad as we think it is, as we think it will be. So let's move on to, so in terms of general things, don't expect a lot of progress this week, or there's going to be a lot of slowness. Don't expect governments to be nice. They will not be. See, let me. All right, so where was I? I was going to come back to the Mars in the 11th house. So basically, this can give gains to most people this week, but they'll be with some difficulty or with some emotional problems. And also, there's a tendency to spend those gains pretty quickly because of unexpected expenses. Okay, so I'm looking at things like vehicular expenses and things like that. Okay, so let's go over to the actual chart itself for Aries. So I know this is longer than I normally take to get to the individual signs, but I want to cover those two areas before I got too far into this week's chart. So for Aries rising, Venus is in the first house. People are a little bit overcharged romantically with that particular planet in the first house. Um, Sun's in the second house, aspected by Saturn. So again, there'll be expenses connected with family matters and also connected with relationships, because the Lord of the seventh is in the 12th from the Lord, from the Sun. Um, Saturn's aspecting the Sun, so there'll be a little bit of controlled discipline, a little bit more attention towards not buying as much as you want to buy. Jupiter's in the third house, so people with this sign will move cautiously or carefully. Mars is in the fourth house, so let's say that, at least from this chart, this sign will be very emotional, very dramatic this week. Moon is in the fifth. Children will be a little bit off base, a little bit difficult to deal with, a little bit crazy even. Venus is in the seventh house. Lord of the first is in the Venus, so a lot of attention on relationship life. Ninth house Lord is Jupiter, placed in the third, so strong desire for learning. Rahu is in the 11th house, so good for uh, gain of innovative instruments and new friendships. And again, we've spoken about Saturn in the 12th, so unexpected expenses. For um, Taurus, the Lord of the first is in the 12th. This is again kind of a difficult placement because it does create expenses, especially due to sex or hidden relationships. It can also mean things like I'm just trying to think like musical ventures or stuff like that, but usually Venus in the 12th in the sign has to do with romantic involvements. Jupiter is in the second house. Um, I think overall this gives this sign more potential for money and focus on money. Mars is in the third house, strong emotional gain, but some disruption in home life because of Moon and K2, strong emotional ambition. Um, the seventh house Lord has no planets in it, um, but Mars is debilitated. So again, this will give some relationship strife. Rahu's in the 10th house, so changes or new innovations at work. Saturn's in the 11th house, so friendships will be a little bit difficult. And we've already spoken about Venus in the 12th. For Gemini, Jupiter's in the first house, good for financial growth, but no real financial stability for about another couple of weeks for this sign. And Mars is in the second house, so you're going to have to watch out for people from, especially your family members, and even children, being dishonest with you or maybe even disrupting your finances, or maybe even possibly stealing from you. That's a distinct possibility. Moon and K2 are in the third house. This combination gives a little bit of confusion, a little bit of depression about direction in life. K2 is good, and Moon with K2 is not a good combination. Um, Fourth house Lord is Mercury, placed in the 12th. So again, there will be some car expenses showing up from this sign, also some home expenses. So, Rahu's in the ninth house. Basically good for luck for this sign. This is actually one of the better placements for Rahu, and especially in terms of career life, although there will be a lot of work connected with it. But career will not really manifest strongly for about another 2 weeks, but still you can put up with that. Venus, some good gains of new friendships and also some financial gains. For Cancer, Cancer has Mars in the first house. So again, this is that paradox of what they call a really good planet in a really bad sign, but well placed for that particular sun sign. And so this gives good outcomes in both education and in luck and career life. Um, but again, there will be some difficulty in making yourself understood. And also, if we go over here, Rahu's in the eighth house, so you have to watch out for people scheming behind your back. For Saturn is in the ninth house in the chart, so good luck, but slow. And finally, Venus is in the 10th house, good for career growth and financial gains. Sun is in uh, the 11th house. That creates a financial, um, good potential for financial growth, but a little bit of a heavy spending pattern, but not as bad as some other signs. For Leo, Leo has, so that was just Cancer. We went over that paradox. Leo has Moon and K2 in the first house. K2 actually does well in Leo. This is one of the enigmas of Vedic astrology. But again, like I said, it gives unexpected leadership opportunities. And as a matter of fact, for Libras, it'll give unexpected gains of leadership. We'll get to Libras in a few minutes. But unexpected leadership opportunities and also some disintegration of organizations. For second house Lord is in the first house Lord is in the 10th. Second house Lord is in the 10th. Good for financial gain and financial growth. But again, some expenditure because of educational aspirations and career aspirations. Um, for Rahu is in the seventh house, so relationship partners will be outstanding or glamorous or very worldly, and they'll receive a lot of attention. Saturn's in the eighth house. You still have opposition from people who are more conservative or more or less daring than you are. Venus is in the ninth house, um, and those resentments will linger for a couple of years. For Venus in the ninth house, this is actually a good placement. Good for career luck, good for financial growth. And Jupiter's in the 11th. Again, good for financial growth, but again, expenditures. So almost every sign so far has been hit by heavy expenditures. So some for better reasons than other. Cancer so far had I would say Cancer and Taurus make out the best, but of the signs we looked at. For Virgo, and this is September 15th to October 15th. So you have to, so Aries is April 15th to May 15th. Taurus is May 15th to June 15th. Gemini is June 15th to July 15th. Cancer is July 15th to August 15th. Leo is August 15th through September 15th. And Virgo is September 15th through October 15th. So, now that I've summed that all up for you again, uh, Mercury rules this sign. Mercury's in the ninth house. Generally, increased luck for this sign, more clarity of thought, more clarity of vision, more ability to do what you want to do because K2's out of there's more clarity about what direction you want to take in life. A lot of obstacles or a lot of delays have gone past. Saturn is still aspecting this sign, so even though you will get what you want, there'll be like what I would call a slow build-up to it as opposed to a rapid acquisition. But people who come to you at this time will stay a long time. There'll be what I would call return um, partners, or they'll be solid. They'll stick with you. Venus rules the second house, is in the eighth house, so it can give gains from unexpected sources. Let's see now. But again, some danger of car damage, some danger of car repairs, excuse me. One, two, three, four. Third house Lord is in the 11th house. So fulfillment of ambitions, but you'll have to fight for it. Um, Moon and Ketu are in the 11th house. So again, a little tough for finances, especially with this particular sign for Virgo. Um, Rahu is in the sixth house, so again, this sign has to watch out for health issues, maybe chronic concerns with health. Saturn long-term relationships aren't good, but business partnerships are. Venus is in the eighth house. We already spoke about that, so this sign will seem very attractive to other people. Sun and Mercury are in the ninth house. That's good for financial gains. Jupiter's in the 10th, good for financial growth. For Libra, Libra has the second Lord in the 10th house, so it's somewhat good for financial gains. Unexpected sources of income and unexpected career changes occur this week for this particular sign. One, two, three, four, five. Rahu's in the fifth house. This is actually not a bad placement. Rahu tends to do well in this particular sign. It will give a lot of creative ability, a lot of ambition, even some romantic attachments, which will be unexpected. But all the career ambition will have to do with hard work because Saturn's in the sixth. But again, this is good for this particular sign because it can actually produce long uh, deferred dreams. And so actually that should be pretty good. But it gets very easy to give up on things. So don't even say to yourself, I want to give up something. Just if you want to do something, Stick with it. It'll eventually come through for you. Venus is in the seventh house, a lot of focus on long-term relationships. Um, and Sun's in, so you should see your long-term relationship partner starting to regain some energy or else um, get more interest from long-term relationship partners. Sun's in the eighth house, aspected by Saturn, so energy levels will probably be down for another couple of weeks, but they'll pass in mid June. Mars is in the 11th house. This particular placement, I'm sorry, Mars is in the 10th house. This is very good for career and financial gains for Libra. For Scorpio, we have Sun and Mercury in the seventh house. This is so Libra was October 15th to November 15th. Scorpio is November 15th through um, December 15th. Sun and Mercury are in the seventh house. Mars is in the ninth house. Good for luck, good for unexpected gains. Saturn is in the fifth house, so children and home life will be a little bit disruptive. Uh, I wouldn't pursue romantic involvements if I were Scorpio right now because Venus is in the sixth, so the person will turn into an opponent pretty quickly. But again, this is interesting because we have the seventh house hemmed in by benefics, which is normally good. So I would tend to take relationships. I'll amend that. I would tend to take relationships slowly and stably until Venus enters the sign, which will be within about a month. Um, Mars, we already spoke about Mars being in the ninth. Moon and K2 are in the 10th house, so could indicate some change of career. And let's see now. Let's go on to Sagittarius. Sagittarius has um, Sagittarius has its Lord in the seventh house, which is generally good for Sag. It will tend to give the sign good luck, expanded opportunities. Not right away, but soon. And there will be some communications issues with that because Mercury, the Lord of the seventh, is in the sixth. But overall, and Saturn's aspecting Mercury. But within about 2 weeks, you'll start to see business partnerships expand. Saturn is placed in the fourth house. Some difficulty with home life. Rahu's in the third. A lot of ambition, though. Mars is in the eighth house, debilitated, and that tends to diminish losses. Moon and K2 are in the ninth house, which can give good financial gains. So let's look at Capricorn. Capricorn, its Lord is Saturn. It's in the third house. So good for financial prospects, good for financial gain. Okay, so Saturn in the third house is good for ambition. Venus in the fourth house is actually a really nice placement for this particular um, sun sign, rising sign. Um, it should give peace at home, happy family. Sun and Mercury are in the fourth house, although some arguments with spouse are indicated because Mars is in the seventh house. But Sun and Mercury are in the fifth house. Good for financial gain, good for financial increase. Jupiter's in the sixth. You have to watch out though for problems, especially connected with the liver. I'm not wishing bad luck on anybody. I was just saying that should be um, that part of the body should be uh, watched carefully. Moon and K2 are in the seventh, eighth house, so relationship partners can be a little harsh or a little bit difficult. Um, but overall, not a bad week for Capricorn. For Rahu's in the first house. So this sign will feel like it's bursting full of ideas. It has like new things to do, new discoveries to make. And that will last for about a year and a half. That'll be, so it'll be tough to hold it down and keep it calm. Moon and K2 are in the seventh house. Relationship partners seem to have a little bit of lack of energy this week. Saturn is in the second house. So again, there are limitations in terms of money, financial expenses, especially connected with cars and also even with homes. But Venus is in the third. So again, this is not a bad sign placement. A lot of the artistic things this sign wants to pursue will be within easy reach, a lot of the academic things. Jupiter's in the fifth house. It's not a bad placement at all. Jupiter aspects the first house from this particular placement, increases the house of money, the two houses of money. So this should give increased financial benefits both to you and your children if you have any. Mars is in the sixth house. This is a good sign placement, actually, for this particular chart. It does stifle career just a little bit, but you'll start to see career life starting to take off within about 2 weeks for this particular sun or moon or ascendant. Um, one, two, three, four. Moon and K2 are in the seventh house. We already discussed that. And finally, that's it for Aquarius. For Pisces, this is April 15th. I'm sorry, this is March 15th, April 15th, excuse me. Saturn is in the first house, so it does tend to make this sign more serious, more uh, grounded than it normally is. Venus is in the second house, and also more focused on spirituality and friendships and financial gains. Rahu's in the 12th. It'll give a lot of expenses to this particular sign. Sun and Mercury are in the third house, aspected by Saturn. So even though that's a good combination for fulfilling career ambitions, it won't really show at least immediately. Yes, so you have to be patient and water those opportunities. Jupiter's in the fourth house. Good for educational progress for this sign. There's a lot of focus on education. Mars is in the fifth house. So Mars in the fifth house, not a bad placement. Uh, Mars, Lord, is in the sixth house. So again, have to watch out for digestive issues and also for stomach issues for this sign. Seventh house, Lord Mercury is in the third house. So relationship partners or business partners will have ambitions. But this is not a bad placement. So for this sign overall, uh, watch out for some health issues connected with, especially connected with the stomach and digestion, and also some slowness in doing things. But overall, this isn't a bad week for Pisces. Now we're going to go to the time and space chart. We'll expand it. And I apologize. I know this is going way over what I normally do. But thank you for watching so long and being patient. All right, so let's see where Rahu and Saturn are in the western part of the map, the far western part of the map, going over into actually into right next to Asia. Okay, if we're honest about it. So Rahu and Saturn do affect Alaska and again Hawaii, and there's a Jupiter line uh, passing close to Rahu, but that's really not interacting with anything. So I think we can ignore that just a little bit. But the Rahu Saturn lines that do indicate some high costs for Hawaii and also some high costs for Alaska. Venus is going through um, the western part of the northwestern part of Canada, and Venus is located in Aries, so there may be some flooding in that part of in that part of the world. We have Mars Moon conjunction hitting um, Washington State, Oregon, California, and Nevada. So I would watch out for fires, and also I would watch out for floods in that part of the country. Um, Also, maybe even some political aggression, some political violence there and in Mexico. Sun and Mercury are hitting. Uh, yeah, Otto is over here, so let's see now. Are hitting the Midwest in the United States, Wisconsin, all the way down through Louisiana. So we can see some restrictive government activities there, all the way through Michigan, Indiana. Um, no, I apologize. I believe that's Illinois. And yeah, all the way down through Louisiana and all the way down through um, close to Central America. So there'll be more news about this part of the country over the next week. Jupiter and Saturn are intersecting in Canada, far northern Canada, but hitting down in Toronto, also hitting close to Washington, D.C., which is right here. So we're going to see the court battles continue. I think you'll see some resolution to a lot of the court battles over the next few days, over the next few weeks. Now that Rahu's cleared signs and now that Jupiter's gone into another sign, so you get more of a clear distinction, a clear understanding. And I think with Jupiter not being obstructed by Saturn anymore, I think you'll see a lot of the court decisions come out in favor of the administration. Um, the Jupiter is hitting Cuba and Saturn is hitting Haiti, and there's also a Rahu line hitting Cuba. So Cuba is, and also Florida. So those areas are headed for some kind of a governmental crisis or governmental scandal. And even in Panama, for that matter, and Venezuela, all the way down through Chile, Peru, and Ecuador, and even into Argentina, but this part of Argentina only. There's a Venus line running up through Brazil. That's essentially, that indicates more flooding in Brazil. But also, I would tend to think Venus is in a lack of stability in government, just because Venus's lord is weak. Mars and Moon are passing through Iceland. Oof. Okay, I hope there won't be any uh, climate problems like tornadoes uh, I'm sorry, not tornadoes, like volcanoes or things like that up there. Um, West coast of Africa is also experiencing those particular lines. Um, England and Ireland are being left alone largely, although there is a combination between Moon and Mercury going all the way from Norway all the way through Iceland, and all these countries are sort of like caught between those two. So that to me would indicate problems in the government, problems with communications. This includes Belgium, which is the seat of the EU. So I think you'll see Belgium and also Italy um, have in conflict with one side, especially with Belgium being more being more restrictive, and also Norway. We have a sun line going through Central Africa, all the way down into South Africa, and again, more government restrictions in both Libya and all the way down into the Congo. We have the sun line. And I'm trying to figure out where that other line is. Oh, the sun line's right here. Yeah, so the ascending sun line. So more oppressive moves in governments in this area. These two lines right here, that's that's a Jupiter. Mars near a Jupiter line. Let me see what these two are. They're pretty tricky to read. Hold on a second. It's a Jupiter line going up through Turkey. This is it's not a Mars line. That's Mercury is it looks like a Mercury sun line um, running through Turkey all the way up into Ukraine, all the way up into Russia. So that to me indicates governments are going to become more oppressive or more controlling over the next month or so before the Mars K2 conjunction hits. And that'll trigger some, I would say, some revolts from there is a nice Jupiter line running through Turkey, and there's a Venus line running through Eastern Europe. So I would say this would indicate flooding or potential weather problems in this part of the world. Venus and Jupiter, although they're benefic planets, often cause excesses of water accumulation. So that's something to be mindful of when you're looking at these in charts. And there's a strong Venus line up here as well. The Mars Moon line is a Mars line running right through India. Okay, so India's ready to fight. Okay, um, the Moon line is also running through here as well. So it's so I'm not saying India is going to go looking for war, but there'll be some sabotage on this part in this part of India, or some internal unrest in this part of India, and all the way up until Ladakh and Bangladesh. There's a Moon Sun Mercury line over this area, so again, I'd expect some additional strife in India. Let's there's an ascending Rahu line going through um, basically through Thailand up into China, and also a Saturn Rahu line going up through those regions. So those areas we know are going to get hit hard by the tariffs, especially Vietnam. But I think China is also going to be experiencing some internal unrest and some scandals connected with the government. there's a Venus line heading down through right next to North Korea and right through Australia. That looks relatively benevolent, but like I said, flooding is a distinct possibility. And nothing's hitting Japan. Sun and Mercury are, and it's a Mars Moon combination close to my, I think it's Micronesia over here. And so again, we can expect some bad weather and also in New Zealand. But that's about it for the world. So the spots I would pay particular attention to would be these regions right here, this region right here in Europe, this region in Africa, and this entire region. I pay attention to all the United States, but in particular this region and the Moon Mars combination. Like I said, some bad weather, some bad environmental things happening over here. Okay, so that's about it for me for this week. Thank you very much for sticking with me this long. It's been a pleasure on my part. I hope it has been on yours. And I love you all. That's why I do this. And thank you very much for watching. I hope you stayed until the end. And I thank you again. Thank you very, very much. And we'll see you next week. Okay? Have a great day. And I had a lot of interruptions this week. That's why um, you saw me blinking in and out. Okay? All right. Thanks a lot, folks. And have a blessed week. And again, remember, I do love you all. Thank you for watching.